Of the AMS Technical Advisory Committee to order. It is 1:03 p.m. Would you do a roll call for us, please, Aaron?
Yes, Member Keegan.
Present.
Member Lindemood. Member Alimi.
Present.
Member Dawad.
Present.
Member Reed for Member Boland.
Present.
Member White.
Here.
Member Coy.
Here.
Member Kohlhaas.
Here.
Member Rudolph.
Here.
Member Babb.
Here.
And I just want to note that Member Yeager for the port is excused today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Would you also do the public involvement announcement for us?
Of course. Welcome to the AMS Technical Advisory Committee. Public comments are welcome and encouraged with 3 minutes given to each speaker. After the committee discusses each item, members of the public will be invited to comment. Housekeeping items for virtual attendees, please keep your camera off unless speaking. For those attending by phone, please press *6 to mute or unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Do we have a motion for approving the agenda?
Move to approve. Second.
Moved by member Babb, seconded by member Kohlhaas. Are there any changes that are needed to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, do we have any objections to approving the agenda? Hearing no objections, the agenda is approved. Next item is the meeting minutes from our July 3rd, 2025 meeting. Do we have a motion for approving minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from July 3rd.
Okay, moved by member White. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by member Babb. Are there any changes that are needed to the minutes? Okay, hearing no comments on changes, are there any objections to approving the minutes? Hearing none, the July 3rd, 2025 minutes are approved. Next on our agenda are our action items. We'll start with action item 5A, the 23 to 26 funding program admin mod number 3. That's yours, Aaron?
Yep. Hey, everybody, we have our first admin mod since our last amendment. Make some changes to the tip. Just a couple that'll go over really quickly. First, we found an error in the non-motorized table for the totals at the end. It seems that we weren't capturing the match at the bottom of the table, so we updated that. There's no change to our overall fiscal constraint. It was just a technical error that we're correcting as we're moving forward on this. Next item, table 7, HSIP. There are 2 changes here. First being for 5th Avenue Concrete Street to Carluck Street pedestrian improvements project, adding a new funding code, which is for HSIP penalty, and then adding $575,000 in design for FY25. My understanding, and DOT, please correct me if I'm wrong, the HSIP penalty is because of the VRU, the vulnerable road users. My understanding is the state has not met their safety target, so they are penalized by having to put more money towards helping to achieve those targets and putting them towards vulnerable road user type projects. For example, the 5th Avenue Concrete Street pedestrian improvements. So it's just a quick funding code change and then a small cost increase for that project. And this came at the request of DOT. Next is HSP, Anchorage Flashing Yellow Arrow and Signal Head Display projects. Changed the funding plan from utilities construction to design, and then update the funding code from the uncategorical 148 to HSIP penalty. My understanding, HSIP penalty does not require match, so it's also removing the match from that particular project. So that's why you see the cost of the project decreasing from 11.3 to 10.0 million. That also came as a request from DOT and PF for those changes. And they need to get them done before the end of this fiscal year so they can get the funds obligated. So that's why we're moving pretty quickly on this. Table 8, NHS. So another request from DOT. And this one, unfortunately, you will not find on the table itself. It seems there was an error when we posted it. I guess when I saved it as a PDF, it did not capture this change to the table. So, but we captured it on the memo and we've updated the tables. So the versions that you have in front of you should reflect this. And this is for drainage improvements in the Anchorage area. the parent project, changed the funding code from National Highway Performance Program to Surface Transportation Block Grant, and then changed the funding phase from utilities construction to all phases. And then update the project name to add 25 after the FY to match what is in STEP and what the project name actually is. So those are all the changes that are outlined here. I did want to let you know there's another change that possibly will be coming. And unfortunately, I don't have the info for you right now, but it seems there may have been an error on another HSIP project, Mountain View Drive safety improvements. It listed state match for the project. However, it is on a Muni road. And typically there is a split between state and Muni match for projects like that. So we're trying to figure out what the exact amount and number should be, and we'll update that for the policy committee so we can capture it this go around. Everybody is aware of this issue. We're just trying to get all the clarifications, and it looks like it was just a minor little hiccup in the process of getting everything done with the amendment. So it's not a big thing. It doesn't affect the overall fiscal constraint. It's just assigning who's paying the match. And Melinda's working on that as well right now, so she is aware. So as this is an admin mod, it does not require a public comment period. It just goes to the technical advisory committee and policy committee for final approval. Staff's recommendation is for the TAC to recommend approval of this admin mod to the policy committee. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
Chair Coy, I have a couple questions.
Okay, go ahead, Linda.
One is just a general question, and the table it lists grandfathered projects versus not. I just wanted to see if there was an explanation of what does that mean?
Grandfathered projects are typically projects that receive funding in a prior year TIP and they're carried forward to this TIP.
Okay.
Because they are expected to receive the continued receiving funding. It's a way to let people know, oh, this wasn't a new scored project. It was one we just carried forward.
Next question. On table 3 on the non-motorized, was this a new program bucket that was added recently, or it's just now that we're defining the match is being added?
No, match has always been required for this, and this is not a new bucket of funding. This table has been in existence for many TIP cycles at this point.
And then the reason I'm looking at this is because PM&E and Public Works, we are working on our capital CIB and CIP, and I just want to make sure we're accurately identifying all of our match obligations correctly. In the past, we've had a meeting with AMATS that has helped us make sure that we didn't miss anything, and I'd like to recommend that we do that again. And then the last question on table 8 is, since we're changing the fund code to STBG, is there an opportunity to use that funding on non-NHS roads?
I mean, that's what this allows, yes, because STBG is allowed to be used off of NHS. I can't speak for the state if that will happen, but my assumption is that is the intent of changing this fund code, is to allow that flexibility to occur.
Much more flexibility.
Okay.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, are there any comments from the public?
Do you have a comment on there or a question from?
Okay, it looks like Alexa Dobson, you've got 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Alexa Dobson, Executive Director of Bike Anchorage. I would just like to observe that the shifting of funding because of the HSIP penalty to the Concrete Street to Carlick Street project in particular feels like it is not really in the spirit of what that penalty was intended to do. The anti-pedestrian barrier that is intended to be built as part of these pedestrian improvements, I think a more accurate term would be pedestrian detriments in this area, really feels like it is the inverse of what is intended by requiring the state to invest increased funding in pedestrian safety. So I would urge that we find a true pedestrian improvement that funding can actually be applied to that will result in a better experience for pedestrians rather than creating a new anti-pedestrian barrier, as we've seen with the one that was installed on Minnesota. It has not been effective in increasing the safety in that area, and it has made it a more hostile environment for pedestrians. This really is not a project that should be treated as a source of increased funding or a site of increased funding for pedestrian safety. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment, Alexa. Are there any other comments from the public? Okay, looking as though there aren't, what is the will of the committee?
For the sake of discussion, I'd like to move to approve or move to recommend to the policy committee that they approve the funding program admin mod number 3 as written here.
Okay. Moved by member Babb. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by member White. Did you want to do some discussion?
I wouldn't mind asking about those pedestrian improvements on the project that Alexa just mentioned. See if DOT has any comments or anyone else working on that project.
Yeah.
I think we have Anna online.
Anna
Bozen.
Bozen, are you online and able to comment?
Yeah, this is Anna Boson, Regional Traffic and Safety Engineer. I just logged in, so I did catch a portion of the public comment on this. What I can say regarding the Fifth Avenue concrete to Carluck Street Ped Improvement Project is that we have put out a RFP, and I believe we're in negotiations right now to add some public involvement and scope for this project, similar to what was presented to AMATS maybe about a year ago or 9 months ago. That would include some additional pedestrian separation near the intersection of Carluck. It would also include some fencing in the backside to further channel pedestrians to the Carluck intersection. It would include a different design for the median that is more of a raised planter type wall ish rather than the fencing that was used on Minnesota. And it can evaluate also additional crossing if feasible with the airport proximity and the lighting proximity there to the runway. It's a challenge for sure in this area to address additional treatments in that area, but we will be reaching out to the Fairview Community Council and others to get some more public involvement on this project.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Do we have other discussion on this item?
I think that the fact that there will be more public involvement on this item satisfies my curiosity.
Okay, so the fact that this is funding so that they can move into the project, it's not ready to build as is, there's still outreach design options. I guess one question that I have also for Anna is the HSIP penalty. How, for this project in particular, how was it determined that it was applicable? Like, what are the requirements, or what does that look like?
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Anna Boson, Regional Traffic Safety Engineer. I might punt to Sarah Riopel from our statewide headquarters office on the funding. I believe it's because vulnerable road user type treatment is proposed, and so we try to use up different penalty funds associated with the type of treatment. But if Sarah's online, she might be able to speak more to that.
Yes, hi, Sarah Riopel. I'm the acting roadway safety engineer in the statewide, in statewide for the traffic and safety. And the vulnerable road user penalty is due to having more than 15% of fatal. We have the threshold. Sorry, I'm not used to speaking on this. Basically, we meet the penalty, and so we need to spend at least 15% of our uncategorized HSIP funds on VRU specific projects. So this particular project, because it is pedestrian improvements, falls under that category of 15%. And so can someone repeat specifically the question so I can better understand it or better answer it?
Yeah, so what about this project is considered pedestrian improvements to where it justifies use of these penalty funds to construct it?
With my understanding is that this project is to reduce fatal and serious injuries for pedestrians and non-motorized users. And from the previous nomination, the idea was to prevent mid-block crossings on this stretch of roadway on Fifth Avenue between Carlick and Concrete. And so that was the proposed mitigation from the region in their nomination. And although I don't have the specifics for, well, because it's mostly focusing on the vulnerable road users. Now, sorry, I understand that I'm struggling talking here. I could probably better answer this later. I'm not that great at on the spot, so sorry.
That's all right. I think my suggestion would be in 2 weeks at the policy committee, having a little bit more clear answer because it'll probably come up then, and I imagine through the project it'll come up, especially with Minnesota, kind of similar questions like, is this project going to actually improve things for pedestrians versus prevent pedestrian crossings in a certain spot? You know, will there be something that really truly makes it easier for pedestrians to cross the street? So, yeah, if you're ready to speak to that, I think that's key. Because those are some key needs. You know, just to say you can't cross here doesn't feel like it's really addressing the needs. So that's my suggestion, but I think we have a motion before us. Is there any other comments or, I guess, discussion on that?
The one thing I was going to ask, are we going to add the Mountain View once we figure out the Mountain View issue and add this to the admin mod? So we would have to amend this to just say we're going to also include Mountain View before it goes to policy. Is that the intent?
Yeah, you guys can, if you want to do something like that, to do an amendment to say, when you get the updated information on Mountain View, include that in here. We'll add it for the policy committee regardless, but if since we discussed it here, if you guys want to add it in there so it's clear on the record that you want to make sure that that is included, that's fine.
I just want to make sure it got captured. And
Do you want to make an amendment to the motion to suggest that in the?
probably would help our policy
Yep.
group know that we at least discussed it, and for the record, think it should be added. So I would amend our approval of this and moving it onto policy by making sure that whatever the result of the Mountain View is added to this amendment so we can capture it all at policy.
Okay, so a motion for an amendment is made by Member White to add in the
Yep.
Mountain View.
To this admin mod.
And so that is, which table is that?
It'll be table 7 for HSIP. And it's just a fund code, or it's a match code change. between just saying state match only, and then I believe it'll be split between the two.
Yep.
But just trying to get written confirmation for that, so we're all on the same page.
So to characterize the motion is to have an amendment to table 7 incorporates the appropriate state and local match for the Mountain View project.
Yeah.
And that'd be part of what we're also recommending the policy committee approve.
Yes.
Is that accurate? Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by member Kohlhaas. Is there any opposed to that amendment? Okay, hearing none opposed, that amendment passes. So now we have the motion before us as amended to recommend this program admin mod number 3 to the policy committee. Any additional comments, amendments? Okay, is there anyone opposed to approving the motion as amended? Okay, seeing no objections, the motion as amended is approved. Let's see, so now we move on to action item 5B, the 2025 public participation plan. Will this one be Christine?
Will be Christine.
Okay, go for it.
Thank you, Christine Schutte, Pavement planner and public involvement coordinator. So before you today is the revised, updated public participation plan based on public comment. So we thank everybody who took time to read this plan and comment on it. I'll briefly highlight some of the changes that we made. We had several comments that asked us to put more information in that upfront section. This is AMAT, in case that's like hard people read. So we added who is AMAT staff and the general committees that make up AMAT, how projects get proposed, and then cited the federal requirements that guides our work. There is some discussion on the suggested drafted performance measures. So we clarified some language to those comments. And then any of the comments that propose new measures, we weren't recommending at this time, but we want to revise this plan every 2 years. So as we look at our measures and track our progress, we can revisit if we need to add or amend any of the measures. A lot of comments came just to make some of the graphics more readable. So a lot of the graphics were changed and edited, and if it's highlighted in red in the new plan, you know it's different than it was in the draft plan. And then we got a comment that a particular body thought that a lot of their comments, they look at comment response summaries from AMATs and see no change recommended. So in this particular comment response summary, we tried to change what we could and what we agreed with the change. And then if we didn't agree or there was a reason that we couldn't make that change, we tried to elaborate that in our comments response summary. So you should note that most of our responses give more detail than just no change. So minutes before you today for approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
Just appreciate the hard work.
Okay, Member White appreciates our work. Yep, for sure. Do you have a comment?
I do have some comments. I always appreciate the opportunity to review the documents, and it refreshes my knowledge and the information of what AMATS is all about. It's nice and clear and concise and using plain language. I always appreciate that. I did have a couple suggestions or things maybe just to discuss. On page 12, on the table 3, item 3, when it talks about target outreach, and it describes using a grassroots approach for engagement when possible. I'd like to just make a suggestion on page 40 under the engagement techniques, if maybe it could be explained further, or the tie to grassroots, whether that's meaning using social media or yard signs or interacting directly with the public, and how do you reach the public directly. So I thought maybe because I love the word grassroots, but then making a clear definition of what does that entail, I think that would be helpful. My other question or comment is on page 39, paragraph 1. It talks about advance notice. The one for events, I think, should be noted that it's 14 days advance notice for events, because it does express that elsewhere in the plan, the difference between meetings versus events. So maybe just take a look at that. I guess just a question out of curiosity is the incentives for gift cards or other types of incentives. I kind of just like to know if anybody has any feedback on, is that happening and is it productive, and are practitioners or public involvement practitioners actually doing that? And what is the response? Is it helping entice people to, participate further or not?
There's like best practices, speaking, it's shown that if you provide childcare or food or some sort of incentive to participate, that can help. Or just inviting a local, group to be part of your event that's adding value that your community members are interested in. That's another way. All that takes a little more coordination. AMETS hasn't explored too much with that. We'd like to start doing what we can and what we can spend our funds on, but it has been shown best practices that it's helpful.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Melinda. Other questions or comments?
Brad, I have a question. This is Bart.
Go ahead, Bart.
I was wondering, the tip is used to satisfy our program of projects, and we have that statement in the tip, but I think it would be helpful to mention it in this public participation plan as well. And I know that there's mention in the public transportation section about the program of projects, but it doesn't specifically mention that the tip is used to kind of carry out that process. And I think that we should add something along that line, either in the tip section or on this, I think it's page 35 is where it says. Or on page 2 there, it's fine too.
Does that make sense, Christine, or do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I can add that. I think it's appropriate on page 2, so it's front and center. I was just checking to see if it was already there, because that's where I would put it intuitively. So if that satisfies the committee, that is what I'll do.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would suggest just mirroring the language that's in table 9 of the tip.
Are some of these changes ones that can be made prior to in the policy committee, or you just list them so that they see them at the policy committee and can decide on it?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys go to approve it, you can say approve with the changes talked about here today, because I think everything we've talked about is pretty basic and easy to do, and we'll make sure to capture them for the policy committee so they can see what was talked about.
Okay.
You don't have to call them individually out. You can just say as talked about today. So
Easy.
Okay, perfect. Other questions or comments? One question that I have is with regards to the online comment tools that projects use, and the recollection that AMATS has a tool that can compile comments across projects as a resource, on a certain project. If it's used, those comments have a life beyond that one specific project, but can also then be tapped into for the MTP and maybe other similar projects. Am I remember that right, Aaron?
yeah, we have our public input tool. Sorry, I forgot the name there for a minute, that we utilize for the AMATS projects. One of the things we want to start using is all AMATS projects, not just the planning projects, start using our public input tool for their public engagement opportunities. So we can capture historically all of the comments that come in for projects for AMATS.
And so it's something that we would need our project teams to also be aware of, and maybe that might be something incorporated into scopes with those teams, or at least helping a public involvement staff on projects know about that public involvement tool, and be able to take advantage of that resource, and also have it then benefit just generally the whole program. So I guess that's more of a comment than a question, but okay, other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, do we have any comments from the public? Don't see any online, don't see any in the room. Okay, what is the will of the committee?
I move to recommend to the policy committee approval of the 2025 public participation plan with staff revisions and consideration of members' comments.
Okay, motion by member Kohlhaas. Do we have a second? Seconded by member Lindemood. Any discussion or amendments? Okay, hearing none, are there any objections to approving the motion? Okay, hearing none, that motion is approved. Thank you all. Let's now move on to item 5C, the high crash network map. I'm assuming that's going to be Ms. Weiser. Okay, go for it, Emily.
Thanks. Emily Weiser. I'm a planner and the non-motorized coordinator with AMATS. So we brought this map to you, a previous draft of it last month, just kind of an introductory, here's what we're working on. So it's back before you today for a formal recommendation to the policy committee. The thought is that this could be adopted as an official AMATS high crash network until the next safety plan, which can then work through some of the more robust reanalysis and other considerations that we've talked about along the way with this. We also today provided a table with more information that was reflected during the previous meetings, where the map shows where these corridors and hotspots are, but it doesn't really tell you anything else about them. So there were some questions about what types of crashes, which ones are non-motorized, and so forth. So for this new table, we took all available data, which is now up through 2024 from DOT. 2024 is not totally finalized, so just keep a little asterisk there, but it should be extremely close to final at this point. And so this provides some numbers for each of these corridors. Looking at, the number of fatal crashes and serious injury crashes, as well as whether pedestrian and or bicycle crashes were the most common or second most common type, just to give you some sense of kind of what's happening in these locations. And then the table is sorted by the number of fatal and serious crashes per mile. So since these corridors are all different lengths, it's not really fair to compare the raw totals between a really long corridor and a really short corridor. But showing them per mile is a way to kind of equalize that. And it's not going to surprise you which ones come out on top. It's all in line with the previous efforts to identify these high crash areas. But this helps to spell that out with that additional information that was requested. So the thought is to adopt the map, not the table. The table is just supporting data, so that doesn't have to be adopted. It's just more information that could be used or could be a starting point for projects looking at these areas. If it's adopted, then the idea is to use that in the AMATS planning process. So looking at project selection and prioritization, as well as potentially scope. We've also talked to traffic about maybe using this in some of their data analysis that they do every year for the crashes, but nobody other than AMATS has to use this. It'll be available to them and to the public, but it's not necessarily part of anybody else's process, just something that we'll consider and make available. And then, as I mentioned, the idea is that this is sort of an interim effort, taking what we already have, pulling it together into kind of one product. And the idea is with the next safety plan, we can look at things like, the current map is based a lot on the previous safety plan, which considered all types of crashes equally. And we've discussed it might be useful to consider fatalities and serious injuries as serious or give them more weight when identifying these problem areas. Also, if we can look at non-motorized and motorized maybe separately, maybe we can have two maps, maybe there's not enough data for that, but that would be a good thing to look into. Looking at changes over time. So like this table combines 12 years of data, and some of those roads have had some changes in the meantime to, HSIP projects or signal timing or whatever. So if we can start to look, now that that longer time series of data is available, at are things changing over time at any locations, and was there a change since an HSIP project, or anyway, all of that more in-depth stuff I think will play really nicely into the next safety plan update. So just to kind of plant that seed and let you guys ruminate on what you might request that we do with that update when it comes around in another year and a half or so. So there's your overview. There is some more information in that memo, and the map and the table are both attached, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Emily, and thanks for all your work on this. Definitely very helpful, very useful. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Go ahead, Brian.
I see red, I see yellow. It's pretty much all urbanized. I think it's cool. Is there, what threshold is used between red and yellow? And how did you figure out what this threshold was?
Yeah, so the yellow, that's what I'm calling corridors. And those, so a number of other sources, these 4 other sources that I listed out here, each identified corridors. And their methods varied, but we basically took all their corridors and laid them on top of each other. They almost all identified all the same corridors. There might be one that, I think 36th is in HSIP, but not in another plan. So, one here and there might be different. We pasted them all on top of each other to say, here's everything on the map. The red is what I'm calling hotspots. And those came directly from the AMAP safety plan, because that was the only one that has identified hotspots distinct from corridors. And their definition was if it had 70 or more crashes in the 5-year period that they looked at, crashes of any type, then it's a hotspot. So that's that any type of crashes, right? It doesn't emphasize the fatality and serious injuries. So I think that is a caveat for using this map. But that was the only source we had for hotspots. And since the yellow covers so much, I think it's helpful to have those red areas to say, okay, this is a really bad spot. Even if they're only fender benders, that still indicates a problem.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
I have a question. Can you speak more to adopting the map, but not the table? Just say a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think the idea is for the map can help guide AMAP's planning. Maybe we should look here first for new projects, or if there's a couple of projects that scored similarly in the MTP, maybe, and one of them's on the corridor, maybe we can take that and use it in the tip. And then I think the table is less appropriate as an adopted product, just because it really is just data. It's just the numbers. It's not, there's no policy in there. There's no real judgment calls. It's just, here's the hard numbers. So I don't know if there would be any disadvantages to adopting it, but it just doesn't seem like the type of thing that is as appropriate as a document. I don't know if Aaron wants to speak to that.
Well, yeah, so one of the big differences is the number of years used. So the map draws from existing plans that are already approved, and it only goes till 21-ish.
So the sources varied in the data that they used, or the years that they used, but they ran from 2016 to 2022. Each one only used 5 of those years, but together they span that period. And then, yeah, the table uses a longer time period. because we wanted to use as much data as we had. You know, fatalities and serious injuries are relatively rare in any given year. So if you can use more years, that's more information. But yeah, it doesn't directly correspond to what's on the map. I think I did look at the 5-year periods individually, and almost nothing changes in the table in terms of the rank of the roads. So I don't think there's disagreement there necessarily, but it is a distinction.
So the map is distilling geographically where you might want to focus projects, and the table is the data sort of behind some of that, not specifically for the map, but some of that decision-making process.
Right. Yeah.
So I love the map. I love the table more. And I wish that we could adopt the process that you went through for this, instead of adopting the map or the table. Just because I think that, you know, that all of this information is going to change, right? Continuously. So I would love to see this happen, you know, every time we have big decisions to make about where these projects are going to occur and what should be funded and what shouldn't be funded. So kudos to you for creating the map and the table, and thank you for that. I think I do support adopting the map because it is based on the policy documents, the existing documents, but I am hoping to see more of data tables like that.
Yeah, sounds good. I don't think we have to limit any of the analysis or tables. That's the question of, is it appropriate to adopt? Should this be the table that is the basis of our high crash network and what we're trying to address, or is this just supplementary and helpful? And
Right. Yeah. And
that for me, it's like, yeah, I don't see this table being the theme, but the map is super critical that we'll refer to and say, is it on the high injury network, high crash network?
but I do hope that we see more of these tables in the future, for sure.
Yeah, I think the idea is with the next safety plan update is to use the same kind of process and develop a map, develop the tables that are direct correlations. So you can look at a hotspot, like what's going on at that hotspot. Oh, it's pedestrian is the top one, and then angle crash is the second one. I think that the real benefit of this is you see, here's what we think we can do and should do moving forward. But until we actually get to the full safety plan update, our recommendation is just the map for now, and then migrate it all forward when we can.
Go ahead, Taylor.
I know that, the rural dealing streets, and I want to say this is amazing. I'd love to see, outside of this adoption process, I'd love to see some sort of story map that articulates kind of like what this is, what it means, what the table is, and then some sort of graphic representation. I think that'd be a really cool tool for not only the public, but staff members inside the great. I think it's just a recommendation. I think it'd be cool, and you're halfway there.
Yeah, we had thought of posting the GIS layer that created this PDF as a publicly available, you know, through the Muni, so that anybody can zoom in, because it's kind of hard to see sometimes what you're looking at on the PDF, but had not gotten as far as the story map. But I like that idea. Thank you. I will check with my boss.
Great.
See if we have capacity for that.
Okay, other questions or comments from the committee?
Comment and
Go ahead.
question. I also really appreciate the work that went into this. For PM&E, we already have the AMAT safety plan layer embedded into our PM&E app, and that helps inform our projects. And this just furthers that information as a resource. So it did pique my interest to go through and drill down into it and label roadways so that I could really understand where are these corridors. I did do a side-by-side a comparison from your initial first draft to this one, and I did see that Northern Lights Boulevard, Boniface to Muldoon was added as well. Is there anything to speak to of that? Because I'm interested, because we have a pilot project that's going to be coming up.
Yeah, that was an initial omission on my part. I just hadn't drawn the line quite
Okay.
far enough. HSIP identifies the entire corridor,
Alright.
so the entire thing ended up on the map.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Linda. Other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, are there any comments from the public? Any in the room? Don't see any online. Okay, we'll move this back then. What is the will of the committee? Motion?
I move to recommend to the policy committee that they adopt the map as the AMAT's high crash network until the completion of the next AMAT safety plan update.
Okay, moved by member Bab, seconded by member Keegan, like a auction sort of. Sort of,
We'll just get the little ping pong
time.
paddles.
Okay, that's funny. That's the first time that's been a non-verbal motion. Like that. Are there any discussion or amendment? Okay, are there any objections to approving the motion? Okay, hearing none, that motion is approved. And thank you again, Emily, for all that work. It'll definitely be a great resource. Item 5G is next, the AMAT's HIP Amendment number 4 project request. Is that yours, Aaron?
Yes, it will be. Okay, so at the July 29th assembly meeting, there was a question for AMAT staff on the Dale and Folker Street. So as you may know, AMAT is paying for work to be done on Dale and Folker, just right out here off of Tudor. And the question was asked by an assembly member if that project considers evaluating the intersections of Tudor Road as part of that project work. The current project description, the TIP, does not explicitly call out evaluating the intersection of Tudor Road at Dale and Folk. So the assembly member requests that AMATs consider updating the project description in the TIP to include the evaluation of the intersections of Tudor and Dale and Tudor and Folker. And so this is coming before the committees to have a discussion on this, what you guys think about it. Staff's trying to get your guys' opinion, support or not support for this to be looked at as part of amendment number 4. Staff's recommendation is to approve this for inclusion in the next amendment. The reason is we know that there are other efforts going on with the Tudor Road pavement project. There are the HSIP nominations that we put in. It's just allowing more flexibility for the Dale and Folker projects to make sure that it's included from the beginning as part of the design and the environmental process. I'll be honest, we've seen that pavement projects do get delayed routinely in the Anchorage area. The HSIP projects are not guaranteed to be funded. So this is just giving another avenue for work to be done for those intersections. My understanding, based on how it was discussed at the assembly, was the idea was to look at some additional crossing opportunities for pedestrian users specifically, but we would look at all users. Maybe there's a traffic signal that needs to go in one location that would benefit all users. Or other things that need to be looked at like that. So the recommendation is not to tie it to one specific user group, but give it enough flexibility to look at everything for everybody. So this is not actually approving the project description change. It's just approving that staff should include this as part of the next TIP amendment. So staff recommendation is to recommend to the policy committee to approve it for inclusion. Thank you.
Okay.
Hopefully that wasn't super confusing.
One quick question that I have on that is, as the project description, the TIP is currently written, could the project not actually do anything at that intersection? Is it precluded?
Alex would be the best to answer it.
The way it is in there now, you could look at the intersection, including intersection improvements as part of the road project is typical. It would be within the scope that we give to Fed Aid. So you would be able to, this does explicitly tell the team though that AMATS wants to look at it. So this doesn't, we could do it anyways, but this doesn't really hurt anything to include it. It just gives more direction of what AMATS wants to be considered.
Okay, perfect. Other questions or comments from the committee?
When PM&E was involved in the MLK extension project, I worked with Alex Reed on that one. You know, that intersection did arise as far as needing more interest in how do we get peds across the street. There was some higher crash volumes at Dale Street, I recall. And then also if there's more generators on the south side of the roadway, that will further, you know, the need to look at that closely.
That's good background. Thank you. Other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, are there comments from the public? Okay, not seeing any comments from the public. What is the will of the committee? Go ahead.
I move to recommend to the policy committee to approve the inclusion for evaluating the intersections of Tudor Dale and Tudor and Fulker in the next funding program amendment.
Okay, moved by member Kohlhaas. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by member Babb. Any comments or any discussion or amendments? Okay, hearing none. Are there any objections to approving the motion? Okay, hearing none, that motion is approved. That moves us through our action items. Now we're on to a number of information items. The first one is 6A, Safe Road Initiative from USDOT. Must be really safe because it's all caps.
It is. It's because there's actually a specific acronym for it because we need to. So I'll read off the acronym. It's Safe Arterials for Everyone Through Reliable Operations and Distraction Reducing Strategies. So the idea here, this was a recent initiative by the Secretary of Transportation for the USDOT. That the estimated number of safety issues on our roads is unacceptable, as he puts it in the memo here. I'm not filling words in for him. And that the idea here is to help improve safety, mobility, eliminate distractions, and keep people and goods moving throughout the United States. So what is being asked here is for state DOTs to develop a list of arterial segments, including intersections with the highest safety, operational, or compliance concerns that will be addressed by the end of fiscal year 2026. And that they are to work in coordination with your metropolitan planning organizations using available safety data analysis and assessments to develop this list. So this item was requested by a policy committee member to be put on to the agendas for August to get an update from Alaska DOT, sorry, not USDOT. I will say something really quick before DOT starts, just to get it out there. The idea that all of the arterial roads and problems will be addressed by the end of fiscal year 2026 is just not physically possible. So everybody keep that in mind as we go forward with this discussion. I think the idea here is to attempt something, so let's work together and get it done. But please be in mind that there is a lot of hurdles to getting changes to the transportation system and typically is not done in a year's time.
May I ask a clarifying
Yes.
question? Do you think that maybe the intent behind that phrasing was that they're looking for information on those projects that are currently in existence and maybe ongoing?
I'm
that would be
assuming so.
completed by the end of 2026?
I'm assuming so.
rather
The
than-
problem with how it was phrased is that when you identify all of your roads with the problems, you will address them by the end of fiscal year 2026. So maybe it was just a phrasing error on the part of the notice that went out to everybody. So hopefully DOT can help provide some more information here on what is going on here, because all I have is this one letter from the Secretary of Transportation. Thank you.
I know the DOT is superheroes, but you can do it.
We're hopeful that that is the appropriate interpretation. We are working. Pam Golden and Lauren Little, chief engineer, they're both working frantically to put together a list of areas and project concerns. And then we're also looking at the projects that are coming up in 26. We are under the same interpretation that this is identify which projects are going to go out in 26 to identify some of these issues. I don't think that there's any way, shape, or form. We don't have the funding, let alone the capacity to handle all the safety issues in one federal fiscal year. So I think it would be an impossible task. But what we are working on right now currently, and they were hoping to have the list of potential projects and identified areas available for today. We've been working frantically trying to put this all together using whatever sources we have. And a lot of them are very similar to what Emily's been looking at as far as our HSIP data and our safety plans. And I've provided our work here on what we're doing at the high crash to the team as well, so they can kind of look at that. But a lot of it's just the same data that we've already been looking at. But they're putting together the list of projects. They will have something in time for policy, I'm being told. And so the intent is to try and do the coordination and consultation with our MPOs, according to what Secretary of Transportation has laid out. So there is a list that we've been working on. We were hoping to have it ready today for folks to look at, but I don't think it's quite ready for prime time. So I can answer as many questions as I can.
Are there any questions? We have an offer, standing offer for answers. So,
In some ways, this seems a little redundant to the work that we already do, right?
Yes.
So this is just potentially fishing for information on what we're doing.
Yeah, when we first got the initial memo, there was a lot of concern and fears that we had less than 2 months to put together this monstrosity of a data set. And then as we started to look at it and peel back a little bit more, Federal Highways was able to give us a little bit more guidance. And our fears were a little at ease, just because we've already been doing this. We've already been working on trying to get our data put together. And so a lot of it's just synthesizing it down and making it easier for folks in Washington to understand what we're doing.
I have a question real quick. It wasn't clear from the information provided from the secretary. Is there additional funding tied to this? So can the state expect some additional funds to be coming in to help pay for some of these needs?
We are hopeful that there's additional funding, but in a recent meeting with some Federal Highways administrators from both Alaska Division Office and the Seattle office, they are not hopeful that there's going to be additional funding that comes with this. And so, like most of our federal policies and mandates that come down, we'll see something like this. They're also working on a new transportation bill at some point. And so what I anticipate in all my years of working on transportation bills, something like this will come out, they'll get the data, they'll take a look at what we plan on doing, and then something very similar to this will work its way into the new transportation bill that comes out. So there could be funding down the line that comes with this, but I think right now it's just kind of get a sense of what we're doing for 26, what available funding do we have in our 26 apportionments to handle. And then I think they're just trying to get a sense of, from all 50 states and territories, what does this beast look like, so that if they go to build the next transportation bill, they can fund it appropriately. That's the hope.
it's a promising perspective. Okay, other questions or comments from the committee? Are there any comments that the public would like to make?
Do you have somebody, Alexa?
Okay, go for it, Alexa.
Thank you, Alexa Dobson with Bike Anchorage. Yeah, just maybe providing a little bit more context outside of the direct contents of that letter, put in a larger context of comments that DOT Secretary Duffy has made. A primary focus of this initiative appears to be getting rid of what they call political messaging in road projects. So that means things like road treatments that had like rainbow crosswalks and things like that. So that might be helpful in kind of understanding the nature of this very strange directive. Hopefully that helps provide a little bit more context, and I can share more info and some analysis from some other sources as well.
Okay, thank you, Alexa. Do we have any other members of the public who would like to comment? Okay, no other comments from the public. So this is not an action item, so that means that we'll then move on to the next information item, which is the Northern Lights Boulevard non-motorized pavement project update.
Yes, we have DOT here to give a quick update on where we're at with this project, to have some discussions. So I think we'll do the presentation, then give an opportunity for the committee to ask questions, have further discussion after that.
Hi there, Ryan Harris, DOT, consultant coordinator, project manager Christina Huber, who's the project manager for the 3 projects that we'll be talking about today. And those 3 projects are AMAS Northern Lights Boulevard sidewalk repairs, Anchorage a HSIP Northern Lights Boulevard lane reallocation project. And as we go through these next few slides, I'll kind of discuss each project slide by slide individually, but they are all tied together, and there are some implications that each one has on the other project. And so first project that we have is the AMAS sidewalk repair project. This is between Minnesota Drive and Seward Highway. This project kicked off in 2021. Lounsbury and Associates was selected as the design consultant through a request for proposal process. The purpose of this project was to repair deteriorated sidewalks and curb ramps, address some access control where we could, driveway consolidation, bringing some driveways into compliance. The current status of the project is currently at a 95% design review. We're still working on acquiring a few temporary construction easements and permits on the south side of Northern Lights Boulevard, hoping to push that south side to construction next summer. Still have a few that we need to acquire. The north side of the corridor, we had stopped pursuing those TCE and TCPs because of the newly nominated HSIP project that I'll talk about here in a couple slides. And so our current proposal again is to advertise that south side next summer, and then the north side will come summer or 2, dependent on the design of that HSIP and the screening criteria that will come along with the HSIP project. And so the next project we have in the corridor is the Northern Lights Boulevard Pavement Preservation Project. So this is the same corridor, but the project extends a little bit wider. It goes from Forest Park Drive all the way down to Lake Otis Parkway. This project kicked off in 2023, and Lounsbury and Associates was also selected as a design consultant for this project. This is a pavement preservation project. The purpose is to extend the service life of the road and bring it back to good repair. This project is currently at a 75% design review. We haven't distributed that submittal yet. We have held off on submitting that submittal as we were getting that submittal ready. The HSIP nomination was approved, and so the scope and the design for the north side or eastbound lane on Northern Lights Boulevard could potentially very, very well change. And so we're just waiting for that HSIP coordination piece prior to proceeding with the design on this project. We're hoping to put out the pavement preservation project and the sidewalk repair project together. And potentially now we're looking at putting out the pavement preservation, the HSIP piece, and the north side sidewalk project at the same time. And so the last project that we have, and the newest one, that should be HSIP, lane reallocation. And so this again is the same corridor. The extents on this project are Lois Drive all the way down to Lake Otis Drive. We received this nomination approval earlier this year. From the nomination, the scope was to remove the northern lane between Lois Drive and Lake Otis Parkway and reallocate the existing right-of-way to non-motorized improvements. We recently received the chief engineer's directive on lane reductions for state-owned roads earlier this week. we are working through on our end, on the DOT side, some contractual process pieces that we need in order to apply that screening criteria and guidance that we did receive. And so information from that screening is forthcoming. And that's the biggest piece that we're waiting on right now, is being able to apply that screening. And then that will dictate whether or not this project moves forward. In which case we can move forward with the north side design of the sidewalks and the pavement preservation project. And so just to summarize real quick for you guys here on these next two slides. So we have three overlapping projects: AMAS sidewalk repair project, pavement preservation project, and the lane reallocation project. We're currently again proposing to advertise the south side next summer. The north side will come. Whether or not, well, the north side will come sometime after that with the pavement preservation and the HSIP piece. I guess we go to the final slide. So here's just kind of a figure showing the overlap of the three projects. And I guess if you guys had any questions or comments for me, we're open to receiving those.
Okay, any questions or comments from the committee?
Yeah. Let's move.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. David.
Curious about the lane reduction. Something that's public.
An HSIP nomination should be publicly available.
Sure.
Mr. Batsky.
Sean Baskey, the head of the highway design section at DOT in Central Region. So the chief engineer's directive was, I think, publicly distributed through, our listserv. And so we can pass it along to anybody that would like to view that.
Apologies, I thought you meant the actual nomination for the.
Oh, no, I'm more interested.
I believe it was published July 31st.
Yeah.
So it should be on our chief engineer directive site. But if you're looking for it, if you want it, Brian, I can track it down for
Yeah,
you.
I'm just curious.
Okay.
Thank you.
How many lane reductions do you know, like roughly off the top of your mind for this current phase?
How many lane reductions?
Sorry, not to keep out my
Sorry.
head. How many driveway reductions?
Consolidations.
Consolidation.
Off the top of my head, I don't have the number. I know that there were a few consolidations, but the exact number, I don't have that off the top of my head.
Like less than 6, less than 12.
And potentially, I think I saw Lounsbury and Associates on someone from Lounsbury online that could potentially give me an exact number for you, but off the top of my head. I came in, so I started in October, so I was kind of new to the design team, and I had missed all the way through 75%, 95% design review for that sidewalk repair project.
Okay.
Thanks,
Is there any-
That's great news that you guys are doing that. As someone who traverses that corridor fairly often as a pedestrian cyclist, the driveways are by far the most treacherous aspect of what's going on in there.
Joe Taylor just posted.
20,
Thanks, Joe.
20 down to 0? Sorry, this is what happens.
I think 20 total consolidations. So 20 driveways were impacted through the consolidations.
Just impacted, yeah, cool. And impacts could be deletion or combining.
Yes.
There, great. Thank you.
I have a
Yes.
question. Could you speak to the timeline of this? Because I think that this project was moving forward, right? And the directive came out. Can you talk to speak to the impacts of the directive and what we can?
On the HSIP piece.
Yeah, for the combined that we're now waiting to, waiting for the screening and
So the north side, the pavement preservation and the HSIP project, yeah. The chief engineer's directive, so actually it came out a little bit earlier than I thought it would, or I had anticipated. So right now, the biggest thing that we're waiting on is, again, some internal contractual processes that we need so we can begin that screening process and apply that new chief engineer's directive to the HSIP piece to see if it is eligible to move forward or not. And so I'm assuming we will have the contract piece prior to applying the screening, I would assume in the next 4 to 6 to 8 weeks. And then we can apply the screening to the project to determine its eligibility. I don't think there's been any projects that have gone through that process yet. So I guess I don't really know. I can't pinpoint an exact time frame on how long that screening application process will be. But then after that, we will amend the design work for that HSIP piece into the sidewalk project, and for timeline for construction for the HSIP and the north side sidewalk and the pavement preservation, I would say we're at least 2 construction seasons out. So not 2026, so potentially 2028, I would say is an optimistic, but maybe reasonable goal at this point.
Thank you.
So from what I'm hearing, it looks like the AMATS project is delayed a portion until the HSIP has figured out what's going on. The other option that you guys mentioned is that the south side sidewalk repairs move forward while we're waiting for the north side to be done. So we split the project into 2 pieces, basically.
Yep.
My question that I've been asked, why can't we wait until the HSIP project is done to do both of them at once? So if we end up having to move the south side sidewalk, we can do that as one go. Because it seems like if you do the south side first and then the north side comes along later, you're not going to be able to touch the south side again. Can you explain that a little?
And coming out of the HSIP nomination, I think the scope of the nomination was only directed at moving or reducing the north side eastbound lane on Northern Lights. It didn't discuss impacts to the south side lane, moving the curb line. It wasn't a part of the HSIP nomination scope, at least. So right now, I don't know what the process would be if we wanted to include that in or amend that into the HSIP nominations scope. The approved nomination only was for the north side.
Well, it'd be more of the sidewalk project for AMATS, because if you take away a lane and you reallocate some of the space to widen the sidewalks, can we do both the north and the south side as part of the AMATS project in conjunction with the pavement? I know HSIP is limited to just the 1 lane reduction, but are there any pitfalls we need to be aware of whether we can move the south side sidewalks or not?
Yeah. So something to consider is you got a 4-lane facility right now, your crown's down the center line. So you start monkeying around with one side and moving the curb line. There's like probably 6 inches of asphalt there. And so that's your most expensive part of the project. If you start moving around that crown line, you're potentially resurfacing all 6 inches. Normally a resurfacing project is only touching the top 2 inches. And so you're like tripling the cost of your overall project by even moving the curb line 4 or 5 feet. And so the intent behind the HSIP project is really to reallocate the 1 lane on the side. And so, although it may seem like you could just bump some things over, it becomes really expensive really quick, because then you got to resurface 6 inches of asphalt across the entirety of the road surface relatively quickly.
Another question, what happens to the HSIP project if it is found to not be acceptable with the new directive?
Great question. I don't think we have an answer for you.
Well, I've been told that the HSIP project just goes away. So, I want to get that out there so people recognize that if this new directive, which, my concern is that HSIP already has a process that it goes through that's pretty in depth. And now there's a new directive that seems to insert itself into that process. It's a little disconcerting when that is a safety process. So I hope that these projects don't just disappear if they're found to not be acceptable to this new directive. I figured I'd just make that comment so you guys don't have to say anything. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any questions from the committee? I don't see any. And so we'll take some public questions and we'll move to the next item. Are there any comments? I guess public comments. Are there any comments from the public on this item? Okay, I see one online.
Alexa, yeah.
Go ahead, Alexa.
Hi, thank you, Alexa Dobson, Executive Director of Bike Anchorage. I'm really glad that we are bringing up the new Chief Engineer's Directive with DOT. Since that is now publicly available and finalized, it is important to know that the screening criteria on the first few pages are superseded by the criteria for recommendation on the final page of the process. And the criteria for recommendation are fairly clear that if level of service is anticipated to be lowered by a proposed road diet project, those road diet projects will not be allowed to move forward. Now, this is completely unacceptable because it treats level of service, which is exclusively and purely a metric of driver convenience, as a higher and more important deciding factor than safety. The imposition of this policy occurred without any transparency or opportunity for public comment, which is also inexcusable. And this is not the only HSIP project that is threatened by this unnecessary policy. Other ones that I'm also concerned about include A Street, Gamble and Ingra, and Mountain View Drive. These are areas of serious safety needs, and these are areas that have already been validated by DOT's own staff. So the idea that now we're going to turn around and invalidate these projects, cancel them because they are projected to, in the future, slow down vehicle traffic a little bit, it is outrageous. So we really want to express the strongest possible objection to this policy, and hopefully we can bring more attention to it. We're also seriously concerned that this is getting in the way of the Federal Highway Administration's process for validating and moving forward these safety projects with the HSIP program. So, you know, if DOT really wants to claim to have this serious concern for safety, we really need to see that in the actions that are being taken, because right now it kind of looks like we're saying one thing in public and then turning around behind everybody else's backs and implementing a policy that's going to make safety impossible to actually achieve. So that is our comment here. We really want to see this policy rescinded effective immediately and safety prioritized over driver convenience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alexa, for your comment. I see another hand raised. Looks like Ascending Member Aaron Baldwin Day. You have the floor for 3 minutes.
Thank you. Is it appropriate for me to ask some questions at this time, or am I restricted to comments only?
It's more of a comment, I guess, if anyone does want to provide some responses.
Sure. So just generally, I think my concern is twofold. So the first is I think I heard that there are some contractual things that are happening within the DOT that are preceding the actual implementation of the screening process for lane reductions. And I'm curious about the nature of those negotiations, or I'm not sure exactly how it was phrased, but what exactly that means. And then also what the actual timeline is for implementation of the screening tool.
The process that I was referring to there was, so Lounsbury and Associates was chosen as the design consultant on the AMATS sidewalks repair project. And then a couple years later, they were also chosen as the design consultant on the pavement preservation project. So their familiarity with the area was seen as a benefit to the state to be able to apply a single source waiver. So we did not have to put out an additional RFP. So we could maintain Lounsbury's services as the designer for the HSIP piece.
And does that affect the screening?
Not really, no.
Are they doing the screening, or is there some other contractual screening piece?
That doesn't affect the screening. Once we have that waiver, then we can let Lounsbury's team conduct the screening.
Okay, so you're just waiting for the waiver to pass through so they can do the screening?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
So a follow-up question to that, if I may. So going forward, should we expect that the screenings themselves are not actually going to be conducted by DOT staff? They're going to be conducted by third-party consultants?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It depends on the project. It could be either. Some of the screenings could be done before the projects were started. In that case, we wouldn't have a consultant on board, and that would have to be DOT staff. But if projects are started and it's part of the alternative selection and there is a consultant for the project, it's likely it would be the consultant, but it could be either. I believe what Ryan was referring to was doing an amendment so that the consultant would be doing the one.
And in some cases, we may even be doing the screening during the planning process. So if we're doing a corridor study, we may try to implement some of that screening criteria in the planning process so that it doesn't get put on the project itself.
So you go into the design that already completed
Yeah.
versus
Yep.
big question mark?
Yeah.
And then our statewide is also putting together a contract to do traffic services where that screening could be done, not even by the project team, but through that larger contract as well.
Okay, perfect. I know that we often don't try to do discussion too much. Was there any other comments that you were intending to provide, Member Baldwin Day, or does that cover that?
No, thank you. No, I appreciate you being generous and allowing me to ask questions. I've got nothing further. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Are there other comments from the public? Okay, seeing no other comments, we will move on to information item 6C, the AMATS Community Advisory Committee Rec Trails Plan comments. Is that
Be Christine.
Christine? Go for it, Christine.
Christine, Judy Kleiner, and Public Involvement Porter, and also staff to the Community Advisory Committee, the AMATS Community Advisory Committee. They had their third quarter meeting and they provided some comments on a recreational trails plan. We have, the comments are before you. We have already forwarded to the project team. We're bringing it to you so you can see the comments that they made. And the policy committee can see the comments that they made and have any feedback on that to align with project like comment periods. We are hoping that we can start the process of just forwarding comments to project teams with the caveat that project teams are informed that this is not coming from the AMATS policy committee. This is not coming from an AMATS directive. This is coming from a subcommittee, and that they can treat them like any other public comments that they receive.
Okay, any questions or comments for Christine? This item, or I guess any questions or comments on this item from the committee? Go ahead.
I'm just curious about the tie from the park trails to the other non-motorized network with the pathways and the bikeways. Where is it in AMAT's planning documents is the best place to view all of that comprehensively? I was wondering, is it in the non-motorized plan? Or does it exist elsewhere? Anybody know?
The non-motorized plan recommended the recreational trails plan. That's the first plan that's done. I think there were just one or two. What did the non-NOMO plan recommend? Just a rec trails plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not done yet. So they could probably be placed somewhere together when we're done.
Yeah. I mean, because I did look at the non-motorized plan after I looked through the comments just to see how was, it shown as an overlap between all of the various networks. And it did show that there was an attempt to show like the Moose Loop and the Chester Creek Trail and Coastal Trail. So I did see some graphics, but I just wasn't sure if there was going to be more coming. And it sounds like there is in the future, as far as it could be all put together. All right, thank you.
Are you saying there's thoughts to have a separate plan?
Some of the comments were expressing that there wasn't something comprehensive, but looking at the non-motorized plan, it does show that there was an attempt to fold it in. And then as Keegan expressed that the recommendation was to put together the trails plan. So
Maybe
that
the
it
question,
could be folded in together in the future.
I mean, I guess maybe the question that I would have is when is the next non-motorized plan update? Because that's the one that has like the more comprehensive, that would take the results of the recreational trails plan and just build on it.
We're gonna have to get started on that soon because it'll be 10 years old soon already, unfortunately. We have a few years, so it's not like tomorrow, but it'll probably be something we're gonna have to include in the next tip cycle to get the funding started and get that update going. It took us a few years, I think, last time, and so we'll need to get that started by 28 or 29-ish, I think, to make sure we get it done in time. So it's not over 10 years old by the time we're done.
And is there any vision for any other trails related plans, non-motorized plans before then?
Well, my opinion on this, and I'm sure people can tell me I'm wrong, my opinion is things have changed over the years since we started the non-motorized plan update and made the recommendation to the rec trail specific. And I think the public has been commenting on this, that we should have a one unified plan that talks about our system as a whole and to stop distinguishing between rec trails and non-rec trails because everything is a use for everybody at all times. So we probably should have the discussion on how we want to move forward on that because people use the rec trails to commute places as well. And so we want to make sure. In the past, there was a distinction for FHWA where they would say recreational stuff we don't fund. But when we last talked to them, they're like, we don't look at recreation. It's all transportation for us. And so I think we just need to have a discussion on how we want to move forward. And I'm looking at Taylor, so she's not shooting daggers in my face if she disagrees with me. But I just want to make sure that everybody discusses this to be like, are we on the right path to keep them separate or should they be one?
To your point, my biggest frustration over the last 20 years, I'm going to say it again since we're getting rid of the plan. We have a non-motorized plan that relies on 3 quote unquote recreational trails, but at the same time, we're promoting winter use. Well, they're not plowed because they're gripper skiing. And if your primary 3 east-west corridors aren't usable in the winter, you're already conflicted out. And so I've been arguing they have to be combined for years because you can't continue to maintain one and have the other one conflict.
Maybe a question is the Right Trails plan out? I mean, yeah. Is it somewhere that we can review it, or is it still in the process, kind of getting worked through?
Still drafting the plan. Member Pease is part of one of 2 advisory groups. So she has had extensive involvement, more than the average person, I would say. And I will say many of the comments here reflect the same comments that have been discussed at the advisory level groups as well as with the project team. So it's great. She's getting them recorded through another avenue. And I think that there's a lot of value in having a unified plan in the future. I think that the breaking out initially has also been really valuable. Our department doesn't get an opportunity to do these large scale area wide plans, which are desperately needed. Like our 2006 park plan is like, we need to do it. We don't have staff to do it, but we need to do it. So this provided an opportunity to take a look at our system holistically, single track trails, our ski-only trails, really hard to justify as part of a non-motorized planning effort. Gave us an opportunity to dig in and I think provide recommendations for the next 20 years solidly. So a good starting point, and I look forward to conversations about whether or not a unified plan in the future is like what we want, and I think it's not far off.
Do you feel like the plan as it's getting drafted will tee that up nicely or have potential conflicts if it did go a unified direction?
I can talk about that with the project team. It's not something that I have been privy to, but I don't know if it's may have happened in. And I'm sure the project team will be open to that because it's also not a small effort to do this and to be able to do it once with everybody at the table instead of twice with like mostly the same people at the table. Seems like there's some efficiencies to be had.
Yeah, real quick on these comments that were submitted to the CAC, a number of them are asking for the rec trails plan to expand the scope to look at additional things. That's already been brought up to the policy committee in the past, and the policy committee did not vote to expand the scope of the rec trails project. They did not support it at that time. A lot of it was looking at things like platted easements throughout our community. I believe the discussion at that time was another effort needs to come along and do kind of a more holistic approach because there are some legal questions that need to be answered as part of that. But we felt that it was still good to send this to the project team so they could look at it and be like, maybe there's something we missed. Any changes to the project scope that require additional funding or other things, that all still has to come back through the TAC and PC. So if there is that recommendation, you'll see it again. So don't worry, this is not lost in the ether.
Okay, other questions or comments from the committee?
We'll just add the comment period, just map that folks can add their projects to. I think it posts on the 10th. It might be the 10th. It is the 10th. Yeah. So seems like a good outlet to tell people to get on there, check out the map, vote things. Really fast and effective. Get up like a Reddit thread. Wow, this is really digressing. Check it out.
Well, is this for the plan itself, like the whole plan itself, or just to like help?
There's like a map where you can recommend projects.
Okay.
Essentially.
Okay, other questions, comments from the committee? Are there comments from the public? I don't see any in the room, no hands raised online. So thanks for covering that. We'll move on to the next item on our agenda. The federal fiscal year 25 Q3 obligation report.
Yes. Okay. So you saw the Q2 last month. James did a yeoman's effort to get this ready for the Q3. So I know James is not here, but I appreciate his effort on it. So this is just letting you know how Q3 went for the tip. It's not much different from Q2. There's not much changed in that time period. We were still waiting for the STIP to be approved. And so I do want to also let you know that if you look at this obligation report, you'll still see that it says tip amendment number 2, even though number 3 has been approved. That's because during Q3, it was only tip amendment number 2 that we had to work with. So we try and keep it consistent with what was available during that time period. Moki, if you can go ahead and scroll to the very bottom.
Just a reminder, when does Q3 end?
It is April to June. So June 30th, 2025 is when Q3 ends. It's based on federal fiscal year quarters, not calendar, state, or muni years. So as you can see at the bottom there, we are still anticipating about $8 million that won't be obligated by the end of the year. Even when we update this to reflect the amendment number 3 effort that was done underway, there are still a number of projects that got delayed until 2026, and that is the some Fireweed Lane rehabilitation money, some Rabbit Creek Road reconstruction money, Potter Drive rehabilitation money, and then 32nd Avenue money. There's also some Mountaineer Drive funding that is going to be delayed till 26. So heads up for you all that we'll have to do another amendment number 4 to clean all that up and get it ready to go. All of that money that is not obligated this year will be carried forward to a future year. Don't worry, we will still capture it at some point. We'll just have to take care of it then. I do want to note really quickly to say thank you for DOT staff. Since the STIP got approved recently, they've been doing a massive amount of work to move forward to get all of these projects obligated on time. And seeing as how we're kind of at the end of the federal fiscal year with the STIP approval, it looks like everything but those anticipated project slips is going to be obligated for the end of the fiscal year, which is remarkable. So I want to say thank you for all of their effort on this and really appreciate it. Lastly, on this particular item, at the last policy committee, there was discussion about maybe getting routine updated obligation reports so it can be seen in between the quarterly periods. That's a few number of months to wait to see where we're at. So I talked with James and Christine, and what we're going to go ahead and do is put a live version of this obligation report on the website. So anytime any funding happens, if any obligation happens, we'll just update this document so you can see it's kind of on the fly. You may not see changes every day, but hopefully between the quarters, you'll see some changes as it goes. So this is before you, and I can help answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Okay, any comments from the public? Okay, I don't see any. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate you covering that and providing this. And thank you, James, if you're watching or going to watch the recording. Thank you for all your effort. The next item on our agenda is item 6E, the project status update report.
Yes, so this goes hand in hand with the obligation report, just kind of let you know where projects were at through June 30th of 2025. So please note they are not up to date for current information, just where they were at. So James updates this along with the obligation report to just let you know where projects are at. At the last policy committee meeting, there was discussion to maybe providing some additional information for project information about what's changed over the last couple of quarters. You know, what did this look like for quarter one? What did it look like for quarter two? Where is it at now? So you can kind of see how things shift and move for projects. James and I haven't really figured that out yet because that'll take a little more work to get done. So we're trying to do our best to meet the policy committee's ask on this particular item, but it'll probably take us a few iterations to get it more up to speed. So just be on the lookout that we'll be making some changes to provide more information, maybe some more graphics or other things like that to make it a little bit easier for people to read through. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, any questions or comments from the committee? Hey, I would say again, thank you to James for all his effort on this. Definitely appreciated and super helpful. Any comments from the public on this item? Okay, seeing and hearing none, we'll move on then to our last information item, 6F, next TAC meeting overview.
Yes. Okay. So just wanted to give you all a heads up. The September meetings are expected to be canceled at this point for both the TAC and policy committee. Staff is going to be out of town at the AMPO conference in Providence, Rhode Island. So we're very excited to be able to go to that and meet up with other MPOs throughout the country and see how things are going and just have a peer exchange basically of ideas. So we're excited, especially for our new members at AMATS to experience that. And additionally, at this point, we are underway with developing the next tip, the 27 through 30 tip, because it will be due next year. We're already at that point, folks. So staff has been doing kind of an internal draft review of it to get things in order, looking at our grandfathered projects and then how much funding we have left available. Staff will be working internally to kind of pull projects from the MTP to say, okay, this is the next highest scoring ones. Do we want to move forward with design in the next tip cycle? I'll be meeting with DOT, Parks and Rec a little bit, and then the rest of AMAT staff to kind of talk through this. The idea is to have a work session with both the TAC and PC in September. I'm hoping that we'll get everything done in time to still have it on the same day as the regular TAC meeting, the same date and time, and just open it up and say, here's a work session for you all at the TAC and PC. Come so you can have discussion on what this is going to look like. because we're having to move pretty quickly to make sure that we can get the air quality conformity demonstration effort done, the interagency consultation done, and get everything ready to post it on the December agenda for the TACMPC and release it for public review in January of 26. So to give you a preview, there's probably not going to be a whole lot of new projects added in. Our current existing projects are very expensive and are going to be taking large chunks of our overall program in future years. So just be mindful of that as we start looking forward on what projects to add. So we'll get you as much information as soon as we can and see how September goes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Okay, seeing none, are there any comments from the public? And again, I don't see any hands, so thanks, Aaron, for that update. And we'll be looking for the calendar invite for that. Moving on to our agenda item 7, committee comments. Are there any members of the committee who have comments for the group? Okay, go ahead.
We have 2 match assembly items, match agreement for projects. The 4th Avenue Signal and Lighting Project and the Dale Volker one. Is that, am I getting it right? No.
No, Mountain View's
No,
on there.
Mountain View is not.
Done. I think it's the Dale and Folker.
I think it is the
Yeah.
Dale and Volker one.
Yeah, I just sent an email about it today. Hold on.
No, excuse me. I just remembered. It's Spinard,
Spinard, yes.
Yes,
Next phase is Spinard.
Minnesota to Northwood. Sorry, it's a little long day. So that one and 4th Avenue Signal Lighting Project. So we will be able to deliver match checks to DOT soon thereafter.
Okay, thanks, Melinda. Other comments from committee members? Go ahead, Brian.
Fair try's going again. If you don't have your tickets, it's too late.
Fair train's already sold out, huh?
Yeah. So
Oh, popular service. Thanks, Brian. Other member comments? I'll make one for the traffic engineering department. We have a new traffic signals manager. Zach Hartman has moved into that role, which means that our Vision Zero coordinator position is vacant, and we'll be looking to hire that position soon. So we have about 3 actually open positions in the traffic engineering department. So if anyone's interested, talk to me or forward them my way or forward them the job posting when it hits the streets. Not yet, probably in a couple weeks as we kind of work through just a few items on that. But also congratulate Zach. It's a great opportunity. Super grateful for all that he's done. The other thing from my department is that we did complete a speed study for Spinard Road. And the speed study is findings are that we are going to lower the speed limit on Spinard Road from Hillcrest to Northern Light to Hillcrest to Benson, 25 miles an hour. And we will lower the speed limit from Minnesota to Benson to 30 miles an hour, with the plan that once the project that's under design right now is completed, it will drop it additionally to 25. So the end will be 25 for that entire stretch from Minnesota to Hillcrest. But the second southern section will be phased, given that the lower speeds in conjunction with some of the new improvements that are happening, pedestrian crossings and the road diet. So we're grateful for the patience as we've been working through that process to get that study completed. And it does align with some of the other Vision Zero work, including DOT. Thank you to DOT for working on Elmore Road and the speed limit reduction that's there. So I guess awareness for the public, Elmore Road south of Dowling is dropped to 35 miles an hour. So please be mindful and drive 35 miles an hour on that stretch of Elmore from Abbott to Dowling. That's what I've got to add. Any other comments from committee members? Okay, so next we have public comments. Are there any members of the public who would like to take this opportunity to provide some comments, general comments to the TAC? Okay, I see no one in the room or online. That moves us then to item 9. And if there are no objections, we've completed our entire agenda. So any objections to adjourning? Okay, hearing none, we're adjourned at 2:48 p.m.
Can I get a copy of the